Hello. So, so I got the idea only really since a month ago that I wanted to try something different, and so I thought, well, I want to do something visual and graphical for Fourth Day. So I came up with the idea that I wanted to have a fourth in which the use of words is replaced by images. And so sort of the central thing there was that I thought, well, maybe it would be interesting to test the hypothesis that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And there's a couple other things that this that motivated this. I had tried to do an online shared development environment, IconForth, and I was disappointed because there were some other issues with it, but the primary problem was that I felt like it wasn't something that people could actually collaborate with, because if you're you could store to a shared set of blocks in IconForth, but you weren't able to actually make a lot of sense of what other people were doing. You could sort of litter words all over the place in various blocks, and there was kind of this opaque method by which you could claim them. So I thought, well, part of the problem there is that you're sharing a single set of blocks, and somebody owns block number 5, and that's it. And so I thought, well, images, it's a sort of a bigger namespace, and so then you'd be able to let people just claim whatever they want to claim and not have to worry so much about the sharing. So to do this, I put together a little bitty virtual machine on top of JavaScript for the actual execution for it, and then I decided to use just JavaScript directly for the editor, and to store the icons in a database, which is kind of a little roundabout, but if you're sharing with a lot of people, that makes some sense. And I in particular used an HTML feature called a canvas tag, which unfortunately is not present in every browser out there. It's present in Firefox, it's present in Chrome, it's present in Safari, but it's not present in Internet Explorer. So I got the chance to also use a technology that Google's put out recently. It's a thing called Chrome Frame that lets you use a canvas tag even in Internet Explorer by installing a plugin that lets you make use of HTML features that you normally wouldn't be able to use in Internet Explorer. So that allowed me to sort of write it using just very vanilla regular HTML. And then the back end of it, the database, is on top of a thing called App Engine, which is a system that Google offers that lets you store large amounts of data, and if you structure your application properly, it lets you hopefully make your application scale. So my other sort of hope with it is that the way I've structured it, a whole lot of people could use it simultaneously, and there wouldn't be any problems. And that the back end is, your two choices at the moment for that are Java or Python, and I used Python. So the big question with using icons for words is, well, what kind of icons? Because I didn't want to, you can imagine somebody, going to great lengths to design an elaborate icon for each and every word, and that's not quite right. And but you want to be able to tell them apart. I mean, you don't want them to be so minimal that they're just sort of abstract art or something. So I settled on a 16 by 16 pixel icon. And when I first played around with it, I actually even was going to go so far as to use just black and white icons. And then it occurred to me that, like a lot of work, if you're going to have an icon for the color red, you don't have a lot of options as to what to make that look like. So I thought, well, maybe some color. So I picked out what I thought were sort of 10 minimal colors, and the hope is that you wouldn't spend too much time on each icon, but you'd still be able to describe what the word means visually. So the icon editor is just sort of the simplest thing I could throw together, and it's, you pick out a color on the right, and then you draw on the large zoomed in region, and then in the upper right corner that you get a minimum view of it, and you can sort of click to draw. But I figured, well, you can't completely get text out of it because, all these sort of abstract little pictures, nobody's not going to know what you're going to, people may not be able to figure out what your word does just from how it looks. So there's also a text area that you can put what amounts to a comment, and then you can look up words by searching for that text. Because if you've got a sea of icons, you may not be able to pick out the particular word you're interested in. So how do you pick out, once you're going to construct a word, how do you find the pre-existing words to use in it? Well, the way I've got an interface laid out here, you get some number of icons displayed, and they're shown, the first 8 of them are the words that you've most recently defined, and then after that it shows the other words in a sort of a ranked order based on how widely used they are. So hopefully the idea is that even if people put a bunch of junk words into the system, the more interesting words will bubble to the top because people will, if a word is useful, other people will use it, and it will, work through. And if all else fails, you could do keyword search on the text to find an icon. And then, when you click on an icon, you want to find out some information about it. So, like, here's a very simple word. This is square, and sort of the moral equivalent. This would be kind of colon, square, dupe, star, semicolon in conventional Forth. And here you've got the icon I picked for it. Sort of, it's visually representing a square. I suppose I could have done x to the 2 or something. And this is the icon I've picked for dupe and multiply. And I've decided to make the return just implicit, so every word has an implicit semicolon at the end of it. And here's a description of it, and then you have a few options. You can list gives you a dumped listing of all of the subsidiary words that make up the word you're currently viewing, and brings up a window and actually runs the word. And then deletion is an interesting point because I was concerned that so there's two modes of operation. One other thing that I did with Rainbow Forth that I decided in retrospect wasn't a good choice is that Rainbow Forth required that you log in, and that's kind of tedious and might be off-putting for people. So with IconForth, I decided to make it optional. So if you log in and you create a word, you sort of own the word, and if you want to delete it later, you're allowed to delete it. But if you don't log in and you create a word, it's just out there and it'll stick around indefinitely. So that's that. Okay, so let's just go do a demo here. So
is this a link to a real place?
This is a real place.
Internet?
This is the real internet, and you can go there now if you like. It's in fact, let's stick it off to the side. I've got the main page here is sort of straightforward, and I actually went to the trouble of writing at least a simple user guide that has some description of how you might go about using the system, and I've thrown together a glossary of the core words so that hopefully someone could make some amount of sense of that. But the real meat of things is the editor itself. Hello. And so here's what it looks like. You've got the region at the top to edit the word, an area to put a description, a search prompt that you can use to organize words. In fact, here, let me show you how that works. If you put in square and you hit search, then you're just going to see, oh, well, there's square we were talking about before. You click on the icon, up comes its definition. And if you want to actually add that to the current word, you just click on it, and then this is the current definition accumulates there. And so, you can, I'm just going to plunk words at random here, but the idea is that you can fairly easily assemble the definition of your word. You might give it a shape, and then give it a description. And then when you're all done, you hit add, and then it's added to the set of current words. So, for example, let's actually make a word that does something interesting. Let's suppose that, so I've got a word here called 10, and actually that brings up an interesting point. So I've got the problem, how do you input numbers? Because you've got a set of icons, but there's a limited range of what you can do. So I have this little symbol here that what it does is it pushes a 0 onto the stack, and then there are these other core words. There's not 10 of them that multiply by 10 with the top word in the stack, and then add in whatever the number value is. And so if you start a number with this little symbol and then its digits, you can accumulate the number onto the stack. It's a little inefficient, but it allows the paradigm to stick. So then this word individually means 10. So let's say we've got 10 there, and we've got another word here. Let's see, where is it? Well, I'm having trouble spotting it. So for random. And lots of words with random, but that's odd. How could I have... Okay, that's curious. Okay, here's random. I don't know why it's not showing up. Maybe there's some problem. So if 10 pushes 10 on the stack, random is a built-in word that takes a number off the stack and gives you a random number between 0 and 1 minus that number. And then I've got a word here. This is print. It's sort of the moral equivalent of dot. So pick a random number between 0 and 9 and print it. And let's, we can draw some sort of something that we think represents this. I don't know that this really means that, but print a random number between 0 and 9. Add that word. Now we can run that word. And 7. We reload again. 0, 5, 4, 3. That sort of thing. Oops. Gotta go back here. So we can do words that do a little bit more. I've got a word here that there we go. Okay. Got a word here that draws a rectangle that's built in. And what I can do with that is I can, for instance, suppose I take 10 and 10 again, and then I draw a rectangle, and maybe we'll give that something that even looks a little bit like what it means, and create that word. If I run that, drawing a tiny little 10 by 10 rectangle up in the corner. So you can imagine gradually accumulating things. So for instance, in the set of words here, I've got a pre-canned word that, for instance, this word draws a random line and sleeps. So I can create something like this where here's an infinite loop, and we'll draw a word and sleep in the infinite loop. So if we do that, we run, we can get random lines. So, questions? Yeah, a little bit, definitely.
This is fantastic. I mean, this is almost you can do like Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mayan hieroglyphs or whatever. And this really is even teaching children this, because now it's pictures. They understand pictures more than they do words. This is fantastic.
Try to reinvent Chinese.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you should say that. I thought a lot about Chinese in the context of this. It's remarkable, how difficult it is actually. You notice here as I was throwing this word together, I just scribbled something because, I've begun to wonder really about how representative pictures are. That question of a picture being worth 1,000 words. I don't know. I mean, you end up sort of just having these sort of symbolic kinds of things. I mean, like I noticed having, I found myself having words like this one where, you got a dice for random and a line and Z for sleep, and it's suddenly you're building up what ends up being kind of like the radicals in Chinese or something. And so there's a bit of a, you end up not really being purely pictographic, and there's more of a sort of a...
This is exactly Chinese. Lines, you got it, and you combine it into one picture, and you got a new word.
How many tones?
It's great.
What's that?
How many tones you got?
Tones, you mean colors? Yeah. So,
No, well, if you've got icons, maybe to.
oh, tones to the yeah, sorry, tones to the language, right? Yeah.
For those who can't see, for people that can't see, they can understand each of those symbols can understand.
Yeah. I just realized I can zoom in a little for that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. Check it out. I'm still noticing. It's still a bit of a work in progress. There it is, random. Why did that not show up before? Let's see. I had trouble finding this. Pick a random number. Well, why didn't it show up when I searched for random? Oh, it did right there, and I just didn't notice it. And so yeah, that's the kind of thing you notice is that you end up with searching through the set of icons. It's very hard to find things. So I don't honestly know if it'll scale.
You need vocabularies of icons.
Yeah, that's if they were sorted into buckets, that's a good idea.
How do you sort icons?
Yeah, that's true. You have to pick like which category your icon goes in. Yeah.
When you have 1,000, you're in trouble.
No, it's just like a Japanese or Chinese phone book.
Oh no.
Not an icon with a picture frame around it is a group of underneath as a folder of icons for it.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Definitely some hierarchy would help because initially I thought, oh yeah, I'll be able to tell all the icons apart. Now it's just the sea of, and this is since having brought the system up, I blanked out the database a few times. Now finally, I picked a set of words to live with, but it's just, and pretty rapidly you get junk words that accumulate, and then if nothing flushes them out, then so we'll see. I don't know.
I was wondering maybe as you type the word itself, it would bring up all the icons to choose from that match those characters in text.
Well,
Point.
as I'm typing, yeah, that's a good idea. That's definitely worth adding. The search is pretty rudimentary at this point. In fact, it's actually currently it's whole word search only. So, but yeah, I know definitely if I had it do the drop down where it's sort of changing as you go. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I also think this is fantastic. What conclusions do you have about programming in this versus traditional?
From what little I've seen so far, it sort of has reinforced to me the value of language as a way of expressing things. I've been surprised how difficult it is to actually find the right picture to go with something, whereas finding the right word, you're able to fall back on normal language skills and just sort of find something sufficiently descriptive.
National instruments.
Yes, when are they going to see it?
They have a
graphical instrumentation animation.
Oh, interesting. Did not know that.
LabVIEW?
Yeah.
Oh, LabVIEW. This is
Yeah, I
LabVIEw.
was
Oh.
wondering when are they
Oh,
going
okay. I've heard of LabVIEw. No, I've heard of LabVIEw. I didn't know it was National Instruments. Interesting.
There will be knocking on your door pretty soon.
No, they'll just send the LabVIEW National Instruments ninjas.
Yeah, at one time, we in Taiwan, we were discussing how to implement that word in Chinese. Right? And one thing is very obvious is that each fourth word can be assigned a Chinese character. Okay. So how many fourth words each word is just one single Chinese character. And if you define the Chinese, if you pick the Chinese character correctly, then you see you almost got the forced to speak real Chinese. But again, the problem is that Chinese has no problem with pictures because we got the 60,000 of them. Okay, so there's lots to choose from.
Sure.
And you can, if you know Chinese, you generally has at least 2,000 pictures. From that 2,000 characters, you can construct quite a good fourth language. But the problem with pictures is that you get too many. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And then you have to fall back to languages. That's what Chinese do.
Yeah.
If you have too many words, they're impossible to see.
Right.
Classify them and maybe classify them.
Yes, classification. I like that idea of maybe classifying them in vocabulary is particular. That's cute.
This would be, is to apply object-oriented programming to this. And I think that's what you're doing. Good, that's where very much of the
There's already a language for that, it's called Java.
Graphic programming, that's certain. And I think you can get people started on it. You cannot carry it.
No. It's one of the. It's very very approachable, but then it kind of falls apart. I think.
It's very useful at the top level for any application. If you are at the top level, you make these pictures because you only open up, say, 20, 30 functions to use.
Right.
And they can be easily encapsulated in these icons.
Yeah.
But to get deeper in more words, then you have all the problems.
All sorts of trouble. Yeah, I bet.
But at top level, it's very useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the symbols are pretty obvious, multiply, plus, sleep. I'm curious if you could point to any others that we know commonly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if, else, loop.
Yeah. So interestingly, let's see. Let me go through some that would be common. So this one here, for instance, is I tried to establish a convention here. The sort of blue for the data stack and green for the return stack. So this is pop, or our grader, and the reverse of that, is down there, right? Or here's over, and currently I'm a little bit weak on flow control, and I have some specific ideas about how to make that general. I believe I've got enough words that you can enough core words that you can build up the constructs that I want. But for instance, this is a forever word, and what it does is it executes the word after it indefinitely, but you could escape from that by grabbing things off the return stack. And I'm hoping to construct most of the looping primitives out of that. And then where's... Right. So then this is a conditional, and it takes a word, value off the data stack and conditionally executes the next word. And so, for instance, let's see, I was able to use that to implement, like here's min. So I implemented min. Yeah, this is to dupe. Right? Spotted that greater, and then if the two values are greater, conditionally do a swap. And then drop whichever one's at the end of it. So that's min implemented as.
Okay, your web address, try to key that in.
Yeah, no luck. Okay, IconForth app spot. Okay, are you on a phone?
So that people can see it.
What's that?
Make the period bigger so they can see it.
There we go. All right.
I think you need to do just implement if, else, then, begin, loop.
Yeah, I debated that. It's an interesting.
Just pick these words and make good pictures of it. And then, fourth, just let the fourth run naturally.
I think the fourth uses a question and right and left brackets to make all of the instructions.
Yeah, that's a good, go to the fourth and look at the icons it uses for the structures. It uses the square brackets, left brackets. Yeah, it was very easy to adapt to your icons.
Yeah, definitely.
So this lives on the web. Are you planning to let it access other web APIs?
At the moment, the set of work, the set of things that you can do with it are fairly constrained. It's all within the context of your browser. Like, I mean, there is a word, for instance, to get events in. So, like, this is just printing the raw events stream. You could certainly imagine adding a greater range of things for it to reach out and do. I'd even toyed with I kept the underlying VM fairly simple, and my hope is that I could implement that in a range of different places so that I might eventually be able to have it both run on the client side in the browser, but also have it maybe run on, you could have a word and then run it on the server side, be able to do something with the backend data store. So yeah, all sorts of possibilities as to what it could reach out and touch. Sorry, what?
You do work for Google, right?
Yes, I do.
I'm curious, how many